Hello everybody, this is DeanoGTO, and today we're looking at the Primo Victoria, which I'm just going to call the Sabaton from this point forward because that's easier to remember, and the amount of times I've had to click back to this here article to see what it was called in previous recordings of this year is just insane. Like I've clicked back to this about 7 times in the last recording just to remember the name of the goddamn tank. So I'm just going to call it the Sabaton from this point forward because it's a little bit more memorable and it's the name of the crew skill. Or the crew of the band that I think is the crew. So yeah, the Sabaton. This thing was just released on the EU server, as you can see. There were a bunch of different bundles and shit. So there's a bit of an issue that I thought of with this. So this thing is pretty much exactly the same as Centurion Mark 1, except it gets a better shell speed. It also gets a better engine power. So you may be thinking, that might be its thing. Surely it gets surely those are all the advantages it gets. But then you look at the armor on the turret, and you see 254 in comparison to 152. What's going on? So there had been leaks a while ago about the UK mediums getting buffed in this sort of manner. I kind of ignored them for a long time because I didn't think they were actually going to happen. I was thinking like, oh yeah, they've buffed too many tanks already in terms of turret armor. I mean, they've done the French single shot medium line. They've done the American line. They've done the Russian line. They're not going to do the UK line as well, but it looks like they are because now they've released this. They have to do the UK mediums, and the UK mediums are going to get exactly the same kind of turret armor buffs as the Sabaton has received, if I had to guess. So yeah, this thing has 254 millimeters of raw thickness. So yeah, good luck pinning that with your rates. And the thing is, if you think about it, a good driver of one of these things is never going to give you the option of shooting its hull. Like really, the only real way I can think of potentially doing damage to one of these consistently is if you have like say a 122, 128 millimeter gun, HE round the front of the turret, and you'll do splash damage into the turret, into the hull roof. That's the only way I can really think of doing damage to these things reliably because the front armor of the tank is just too good. And the thing is, aiming at this cupola, I was initially thinking this was a relatively big target, but then I was looking at other tanks and I realized just to give you an idea, the Sabaton has the same kind of rock thickness on the front of the turret. Actually, it's got better rock thickness on the front of the turret than the Mouse Chen. It only has 6 millimeters less than the Mouse, the Tier 10. And yeah, those tanks were like already getting a lot of complaints about having too much armor. And then you get the shit like the Emile, which I actually think the Emile has a worse turret armor, in terms of like its overall usability. Like the Emile already had like arguably some of the best turret armor in like the game tier for tier. So let's just look. If I do this, like what's the turret armor? No, never mind. The Emile has pretty insane turret armor actually. The thing is, I've actually been looking through the files of the game for a while here, just trying to see like if I could find a tank that's comparable. But I really can't think of one. Like, it has the same kind of raw armor thickness as an E100, but the E100, it has the sloping on the upper part of the turret. So yeah, it's just gets significantly better as you go up. The further you go up, the better the armor gets. But like down here, it's actually got better raw armor thickness than the lower part of the E100's turret. But I really can't find anything that's comparable to this. Like the closest I could find was the M48, but even that one's a bit of a stretch. Let's just look at the M48 here. Where are you at? There you are. Like the M48 now has 254 millimeters front armor down here, and it has like even this thing has weak points. Like the cupola is massive. Like the cupola is significantly bigger than the STRV ones. Like, even though this is massively reduced in size in comparison to the 9.19.1 version, I mean, look at the size difference. It's about half the size. It's still not a small target. Plus, the STRV one has better gun depression. It has 10 degrees in comparison to the M48 saying 9. Yep, 9. So yeah, like you're able to pretty much make this cupola waypoint disappear by using your gun depression. As soon as you're using your gun depression, this thing pretty much impossible to hit, just non-existent pretty much. Let's see. So Yeah, like even though this thing here is a tier 10, this thing has more, honestly has more turret weak points than the tier 8. Let's see, let me just see here. So, bear in mind, this thing is going to be coming up against like 270, 250 pen guns all the time. The STR-81 is going to be coming up against things like ISs. In fact, this thing is going to be coming up against things like what do you call it, Tiger 131s. And this is the kind of turret armor it has. Like that just seems horrendously badly balanced to me. Like if this had been like 200, 210, I kind of could have seen like why they would have done that, because then that would have made it a little bit more competitive, like in regards to like potentially bouncing equal tiered stuff. But tier 9s and 10s would still be able to penetrate semi-reliably. But 254 on a tier 8, that's going to contest tier 10 standard rounds. Like bear in mind, things like the MX50 Foch B will have 257 pen. So that's going to be a 50-50 shot, or 50-50 chance of penetrating this at point blank range. Like I'm just trying to make sure you understand the perspective just how ridiculously strong this armor is. Granted, like I think the only thing that's really balancing this thing out is that the fact that this thing does not have a 105. If this thing had a 105, this thing would have just been the most broken thing ever. But yeah, I feel like this thing is a bit poorly balanced. If I'm completely honest, I don't think they've done this particularly well. Um, like I do have to acknowledge that the hull is complete and utter shit, but the turret is so good, and they have no reason to show the hull. If they can find if there's an area to go hold down in the game that they can use, they're going to use that area because there's no reason for them to show the hull because the turret is so good. Plus, this thing's going to be a monster at face-hugging heavies now, which is something I just thought of. And also, like the most insulting thing about this here, and actually, just before I get into that thing I was about to mention, like I didn't have problems with things like the M48 and M46 getting turret buffs because the Pershing set the precedent of good turret armor. Didn't have a problem with T44 getting the buff. I did have a bit of a problem with T54's turret buff, but there's nothing we can do about that. It's wargaming. I also had a massive problem with the Object 140 turret buff because that thing was just ridiculous already. It didn't need any buffs. But the T62A and to some extent the T54 as well set the precedent of having good turret armor in the Russian line. So the T44 getting the turret buff made some sort of sense. And with the 30B line, I was accepting of the chance, or I was accepting of the idea of like reduce or increasing the turret armor on the 30B and the 30 prototype, because they were just never played because the Leopards just did exactly the same thing, and the Leopard line was a lot more popular and a lot easier to access. So yeah, I thought the buffs on that thing on those things made sense as well. So like those got turret buffs as well. But now the UK mediums are getting buffs and they're just getting ridiculous amounts of turret armor. And like here's like the most ridiculous one to me. The M103. That gets 254mm front turret armor, but look at how shit the armor actually is on this thing. Like sure it says 254 and you're like, wow, that's a lot of armor. But then you realize this cupola is gigantic. Like it's significantly bigger than the Sabatons. Like it's like triple the size. It's massive. It also has a giant overmatch area on the roof as well. So yeah, this is a tier higher. This is a heavy tank, and I haven't even gotten to what this thing is going to do to equal tier to heavy tanks. Like this thing has better raw turret armor than the IS-3, and significantly better armor than the Tiger 2 or the Tiger 2. I believe the OHO as well and the KV4 don't even come close in terms of raw turret armor. And this is the 110. So like the Tiger 2 is the most insulting one honestly, because Tiger 2, like this thing has I think 8 worst horsepower to ton ratio. Its gun has very similar DPM. Very similar penetration. The only real difference is this thing gets better aiming time, but this thing gets slightly better accuracy. Like those are really the only massive differences in these two tanks, and the Sabaton's shell speed's significantly better than the Tiger 2's as well. So yeah, I think this is a bit crazy, especially when you take into account that this thing here had its overmatch area removed from the turret. Tiger 2 still has it. It still has its overmatch area, which is 40 millimeters, which means 122 millimeter guns are going to conveniently pass straight through the turret roof armor with no issues whatsoever. It only has 185 raw thickness front turret armor, which is not very good, 150 millimeters of cupola armor. So what the Sabaton does is pretty much just shit on the heavy tanks so they used to have some sort of armor. I mean, like when you take into account how big the mallet is on this thing and compare it to the Tiger 2s, the Tiger 2s covers about a third of its frontal turret. When I say frontal turret, I'm referring to like the trapezium shape. Here, like this area here is like the area I'm talking about. It covers about a third to half of it. This covers about 2/3 of that same area on this tank. And the strips you can hit, like if you clip the mantlet, you're not going to pen. Same kind of story with the Tiger 2. But if you hit these areas in the Tiger 2 with an equal tiered heavy tank gun, you're going to penetrate. With an equal tiered heavy, medium, even tank destroyer gun, you're not going to pen this unless you're in a Swedish one. Or unless you're in a Swedish tank destroyer, you're not going to pen this. So yeah, I think these kind of buffs are getting ridiculous, honestly. It's a shame like the UK medium buffs are pretty much guaranteed now. So this is an issue that's going to get even worse because right now this is kind of a pay to win vehicle, but soon like everybody's going to have access to a vehicle as powerful as this. So yeah, good luck to everybody. Yeah, let me know if you think I'm overreacting. Do you think I have a point? Do you think I did a poor job explaining what I mean in terms of like what's happening with this tank? And yeah, I'm actually half tempted to buy one of these just to make sure, just to be able to show you guys what I mean, like by how strong I reckon this tank is going to be. A good player in one of these things is going to be overwhelmingly like they're going to have an overwhelming effect on the game that they're in. Like, sorry, my throat's going. They're going to have an overwhelming effect on the game that they're in. It's just guaranteed at this point. It's mental, but yeah. I'll leave this here. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think, and yeah, let me know like if you have different thoughts. I'd be curious to see if you can like justify the changes to me. Like see if I'll see if you can like convince me if you think this is a good idea or a bad idea. I should just ask, like I forgot to mention at the start, but take your biases out of this here and just judge it from a gaming point of view, like a balancing point of view. Like a lot of people have biases towards the UK mediums, so because they're English or something like that there. But looking at this from purely a game balance point of view, you can see the issue. You really can. So yeah, and this is going to be fun for the future of the game. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below, as I said, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.